On the surface, my life was on track. I was a medical laboratory scientist with a degree in biochemistry, and I was preparing for a PhD. My mind was trained to see the world in data and repeatable results, but inside, I was lost. I was lost amidst the sea of depression and this overwhelming feeling that there had to be something more. Have you ever had an experience you couldn't quite explain? A moment where you felt so deeply connected to everything around you. For years, both as a scientist and as a seeker, I asked pretty much anybody who would listen these questions. You see, my journey to find this more didn't begin in the lab, but in a space of quiet meditation. As I started to heal, I was faced with a profound choice, a voice that asked, do you want to help the world by studying the brain or by showing people how you healed your mind? I chose the latter, and I decided to call my dad, whom I often refer to as my first spiritual teacher. Years ago, he hosted these gatherings in our home for people to explore science and spirituality, and he called them Onion Soup. When I decided to create a space for these conversations, I asked my dad if I could carry on the name. He gave me his blessing, and the podcast was born. Onion Soup. The name itself is our philosophy. Life, consciousness, and the universe are all like an onion. As we peel back one layer, we find another. And just like a hearty bowl of soup, these deep conversations are meant to be comforting, nourishing, and soothing to the soul. Onion Soup is more than just a podcast. It's a space for those who are curious and those who are seekers. A place to be inspired to expand your own awareness and to soothe the soul by resonating with what your spirit already knows is true. Today, that space is growing. It's so much bigger than what I could have ever imagined. But to write this next chapter, I need your help. I'm inviting you to become a true partner in our mission. With your support through this Patreon, we can achieve 3 critical goals together. First, sustainability. To provide the resources to make Onion Soup a fully sustainable long-term project. Second, elevation. To reinvest, improving our sound and video quality. And to travel the world conducting powerful on-site interviews with our guests face-to-face. And third, expansion. To build the professional assets needed to bring our conversations to a major network, sharing this work with millions. If this message resonates with you, please look at our tiers below. For as little as $5 a month, you can get ad-free episodes and join our private community. You can become a supporter, an insider, a co-creator, or even a partner in this vision. Whatever you choose, thank you for being here and for being a part of the Onion Soup journey. Now, let's peel back these layers together. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Onion Soup. I'm truly excited to have our guest on today, Mr. Jason McKenzie. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So you're an entrepreneur, a speaker, an author, and your main focus specifically right now is to help small businesses to get unstuck. But the thing I love about that is that you do so under the lens of neurolinguistic reprogramming and showing people that really what they need to do is slow down their lives and have a little bit more focus. Tell us a little bit about that and how you got into it.
Well, I would love to, and I think if I could go back a little ways to tell you how I got into it, it actually started as a little kid. And so not my journey into NLP and mindset and all those other aspects, although there's little elements of that, but as a little kid, I was fascinated by candy. We're talking like 4 or 5 years old. And there was a store that was full of candy. I was like, I need a lot of money so I can buy all the candy in the store. And that started my entrepreneurial journey. It was like, how do I get enough money to buy all the candy? So that's where it all began. And then from that, I realized my dad taught me, he's like, in business, you're just helping people. And so there's this aspect of you find, and everybody's heard this, you find a need, you figure out what people are looking for, you figure out how you can solve it for them, and then you go out and solve problems. And I love that aspect because it takes this whole idea that so many people have that capitalism's evil or that we shouldn't be doing these kinds of things. And it turns it on its head because it goes right back to, I'm going to help you and you're going to thank me with money. And I'm like, this is the way it should be in life. We should be helping each other. And then money becomes the means of expressing gratitude to someone. So that's really how I got into it, was that whole idea of candy. And then it just evolved from there.
Wow, Jason, I love that so much. And what's really interesting about that is taking the concept with a child who loves candy, and typically we're talking about instant gratification there. How were you, even at such a young age, able to, maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but to look at, maybe I don't need this right now, I should go out and delay that gratification a little bit? How can you as a child do that? And how can you translate that to somebody who today wants something or needs something and wants it today, but they have to be a little bit delayed and wait?
I need to thank my parents for teaching me how to have some delayed gratification, because it wasn't always that way. If I saw it, it was getting opened and shoved in the mouth initially. But that's a really interesting thought of this idea of instant gratification. And it kind of goes back to how I interpret humans working, because any one of us, we all have very similar baseline, what I call programming. We're all written similar. And all of us have this level of ourselves, our subconscious, is I'll probably refer to it for the most part, but that's looking out for us and it's trying to protect us. And so its job is to make sure we're safe and healthy. And as we go out through daily life, it's kind of keeping everything on check for us. And it's like, oh, you're safe, you're not safe, run. And so when we identify, oh, I want this thing, oftentimes I believe our subconscious kicks into gear and it's saying, okay, how do I solve that for them? They want this thing. And that will oftentimes push us into feeling like we need it right away, because the subconscious is trying to solve that problem and we want that thing. And so it just is a perpetuating cycle inside ourselves. But when we recognize and say, I want this thing, but I also want this other thing, and if we pair these up the right way, then you're teaching yourself at a conscious and subconscious level, it's great to go after that thing right now. But if we push it over here, then we can get 2 for 1. And then we're getting the real bonus, because now we can accomplish far bigger things than we ever could if we're merely trying to satisfy those initial cravings that we have.
Yeah. But what about people's subconscious that, or as we established, you're trying to keep us safe? What if your subconscious is keeping you safe to a place or to a point to where we're not moving, we're not actively pushing forward and towards the things that we claim that we want?
Oh man, that happens to, I think, pretty much everyone, because our subconscious is trying to do those things for us. But like you say, sometimes it kind of gets its lines crossed. And I had the craziest experience as a little kid. I probably had one of the greatest childhoods ever. But I had this one experience where there was a dear family member, a relative, who didn't have a lot of money, but they were so generous, and they'd always give and give and give. And they'd buy us things and give us treats and spend time, all these things. And I started to feel guilty as a kid because I recognized they don't have a lot of money. Well, that came back to haunt me in my 20s. And it was the most interesting form. My body's trying to protect me because I had that negative experience, where later on it's saying, oh, you cannot charge people money for your services because you're going to hurt that relative that doesn't have enough money. And so for me, that was one of those instances where I literally was stuck. I was like, I can't. And it took me a long time to figure out. I didn't even understand why I couldn't take money from people. But what I did, my initial was like, well, I need money. That's the way the world goes around. So what I did is I circumvented that, and I put someone else in place to take care of that problem until I could work through it. And so I was able to hire someone and say, hey, you be in charge of the money. I don't want to know about it. I can't handle knowing about it. Eventually, I know I'm going to solve this, but until I do, here, you take care of that problem for me. And then it took me reflecting and meditating and thinking about, and all of a sudden, the amazing thing was it came out just almost like a burst of sunshine. It's like, oh, that's why I can't charge. And it was almost like I'm holding a snowball in my hands and I could just see it, and it melted in that moment. And that problem went away. But it took me recognizing, yes, there is a problem, being aware that, hey, I might not be able to solve it right away. And if I can't solve it right away, let's unload that to someone that could. But then being patient with myself till I was ready to address what was going on. And then my body realigned and it was like magic and it disappeared.
Oh, wow. Jason, how do you get somebody to that place? Because that's really challenging to, one, give yourself enough grace to say, maybe I can't deal with this by myself. But then also to reach out to someone else and allow them to take the reins. Most of us are so, I don't want to say really stuck in our egos. We're so used to being independent that allowing someone else to take over something which is such a asset to us, our finances, is so pivotal to who we are. How do you let someone else take that over for you to give yourself the space?
Yeah, that's a really deep question. And we could probably talk on that for a really long time, but I'd say for me, the first thing to recognize is this idea of independence, it's a little bit fake. Like, have you as an individual ever been independent? Probably not. You couldn't make it into this world alone. Like no one makes it in this world alone. And then as a little kid, you're never independent. And then as you grow up, almost every sport that we watch has a team. Now, you may not always see that team, but even if it's someone playing singles in tennis, who's standing on the side? It's going to be the coaches, and it's going to be all these people that have been supporting that one person to accomplish what they need to. And then who's off in the audience? It's all of their fans and their supporters and all of their friends and their family. They're all there to support them as well. So this misnomer really that we are this independent island, it should be the first thing that we acknowledge as a fallacy that we should throw away, because if we were all truly independent, we would all be substance farmers eking out a living on a little plot of land in the middle of nowhere, but we're not. I literally am dependent on so many people just for my electricity. So if we can get that mindset in and be like, you know what, really the best people have a team around them, then we become excited to find those people that can sit on our team and help us reach new heights.
Very, very beautifully said. And it's so funny because I was talking to someone about this relatively recently. For years, I've been a medical scientist working at the hospital. And I had told someone it's okay to come ask for help. You don't need to figure everything out by yourself. When you're in a school, you're kind of taught that. I mean, you have to study by yourself. You have to take the test by yourself. But in the real world, you ask for help. You can go Google things. You look stuff up. And as you said, just for your basic needs, your electricity, your water bills, you need assistance with those things, whether you realize it or not. Sure, you're paying those bills, but you're not actually the one going outside and turning the water on and off. That. So how or why do you think that we're in such a society where we've been so separated? And how can we get back together to be able to not just ask for help, but be willing to help more people more often?
You know, I'm going to venture off into pure Jasonism. So if you don't like it, that's okay. You can have your own opinion. That's fine. But my experience has shown me that looking back through the history of the world, for a long time, we were stuck in the agrarian society. And it was largely like you'd have the parents and they're raising their kids and they're all going out and farming all day, every day. And you're just kind of subsisting. And it wasn't amazing. But then we had the Industrial Revolution happen in the world. And when that happened, like you said, we transformed a little bit and we said, wait, we can get a lot more efficient, which was great. But then we did start putting people into what is now our traditional public school system. And the public school system, like you say, there's one person who's the expert. They're the authority. You turn to them for all of your answers, and they bestow knowledge on you. And you have to accept whatever knowledge it is. And then at the end of that session, you're literally tested to see how well you accepted the knowledge from the expert. And if you were to turn to somebody else and say, hey, I'm stuck on this, oh man, you're in trouble. You're getting thrown in the corner. They're throwing out your tests. Like and so we're programmed for a long time in our lives that very way and that mindset for what is it, 12 years of that and it's the most impressionable years of our lives. We literally are programmed like that. Now, there's a ton of really good that comes from the school system. Don't get me wrong. I'm not all against it. But there is that aspect that we are put into this isolation system. And then both parents are now working so much that they don't have as much time to guide their children through those years to help them to discover the way that could be. And so I think that there's a lot of that. But then also, until recently, our media was largely owned by just a few organizations, and they also were feeding us this kind of thing. Like, you watch the superhero movies, how many friends do the superheroes have? Virtually no one. They come flying in, they save the day, they make a mess, they fly away, right? And so we've all been programmed through the entertainment, through our education system. Literally, our system is set up to teach us that, not intentionally, but it's just happened that way. So I think that's where it comes down to. And I think the breaking out and the democratizing of this internet that we have had has given so many normal people a voice that now we have a chance for people to say, wait, there are other ways. Maybe we should explore some of these other ways. And we're getting back to this idea of, let's have this melting pot of ideas where maybe we'll do a little experiment over here. And if it goes well, it's going to take off and more people can discover it, more people. And so we have that great opportunity in America where we have, with the internet giving us all this opportunity, we have a chance to start these independent experiments, show people what it's like, and let people find the best answers that do blossom and grow.
So, also very well said. So, when we're talking about neurolinguistic reprogramming, is that really the, I guess, the cream of that conversation? The idea that for a solid chunk, 12 years of our life, if not better, we were programmed to think in one way, for better or for worse. And I'm also not saying that it is or isn't a good or bad thing, but we were programmed to think a certain way. So with neurolinguistic reprogramming, is that really what we're doing? We're kind of wiping away the things that don't serve us anymore as an individual and as society in order to push forward to a better tomorrow.
Well, I'll say NLP is one good tool that's out there, and it's not a tool. It's more like a toolbox. It is one toolbox that we could open up and explore to see what all the tools are. But there's so many other tools as well that people can use to discover, because we each have our own individual journeys. And I think we each have our own purpose that we're here to fulfill in life. And so for each of us, we're here to discover, what am I supposed to be doing here? And there's a lot of things that I know I'm supposed to do as a part of being on this spinning rock. And so for each of us, we have to discover what those are. And so for me, I found that NLP has been extremely helpful. And there's also a number of other tools that I could go into that have been helpful for me. Someone else may say, that's garbage. It doesn't work for me. But this other thing really does. But I do want to say NLP has some really cool tools, because the first thing that it helps people recognize, if you really dive into it, is each one of us has a map that we operate out of. And that map is our world of experience. But I can almost guarantee right now, until I say it, nobody has thought about this unless they're uncomfortable. But if you think about it, your brain is processing all this data and it throws away all the stuff you don't think is important. If you go on Google Maps and look, you will never see the wind blowing across your phone screen. It just doesn't happen. Same within our brains. And so if I say you don't currently feel the sensation of your pants touching your legs, you weren't feeling that until I said it. And then your brain's like, oh, I'm supposed to feel that. And it puts it into your map for you. So for us, we each have these idea of what a map is. And we have the ability, especially using NLP or other tools, to go in and say, wait, that map's a little messed up from reality. Let's go realign on that. Let's get our map of how the world operates a little closer to what reality is, so that we can move forward with how we want to be.
Interesting. You talk about these other tools in reference to NLP, and I know that you've spoken before about some of these different methodologies that led up to what we now call NLP. Can you tell us a little bit about some of these other tools?
You know, the most amazing thing is many people don't know where NLP came from. And my personal journey was, I started listening to Tony Robbins, and I'm like, where did he come up with all this amazing concept? Like, this he's just dropping these bombs. They're like, oh, wow, I can do that. I can do that. And I was like, oh, he went and studied NLP, and NLP originated largely because these two individuals, Bandler and Grindler, they went out and studied two amazing individuals, Virginia Satir and Milton H. Erickson. Well, Erickson is the father of conversational hypnotherapy. And so Erickson, as the stories are told, he could literally sit down with someone, have a normal conversation, and reprogram all the negative parts that person was worried about right out of them, and they would never even be aware that he did that for them. And he could even have a conversation, and at the end of the conversation, he could have programmed your brain that you would have forgotten the whole conversation and walked away and never knew that you met this guy. He was an absolute savant. So for a lot of people, maybe hypnotherapy is a better fit. And then there's also other tools that I've been extremely impressed with. It's called EFT. And you're literally going in and using this tapping and repeating statements. You're able to go in and capture that same sort of essence of transforming your map of the world at a subconscious level. So those are just a couple other tools that have blossomed in the last several years that really give people an opportunity to say, I feel like there's something out of alignment in myself. Let's go in and realign. But then just meditation in and of itself is another amazing tool that people can use. And it doesn't require any special training. Within a couple minutes, someone could be in meditating and really start to figure out, what am I feeling inside? What is the world trying to tell me? What's the universe trying to say to me that I'm missing because I'm so busy hustling that I never get in touch with myself?
Mm. Earlier you were talking about mapping reality and how we don't necessarily feel the wind go by. You don't feel the clothes in your body. But these are also still external features. When we're talking about EFT, NLP, meditation, these are internal. How does one map their internal reality in order to improve their external world?
Oh man, that could be a whole thesis by itself. But I'll try and boil down my perception of all that. So first off, all of us are pre-built. As soon as we arrive in the world, our body and mind are pre-built to start learning. And as a part of that, our body's trying to figure out, like, you see a baby and it's constantly doing this. It's just moving all the time. And the baby's body is programming. It's like, oh, when I do this one thing, when I send this signal, it does that. Oh, okay, I got that. And it starts learning. And so we are built to naturally learn. But the body itself also is trying to filter out, because we get so much stimulus that we can't ever process it all at a conscious level. So our body's trying really hard to make sure we know what it is that we need to know to be happy and survive and thrive. But oftentimes it gets it wrong. And so that's where all these tools come in, is we can go in and we can say, and if you do this, go out and start looking for red cars. If you haven't looked for red cars before, you start looking, all of a sudden your subconscious is like, oh, I need to be on red alert for red cars. So then it's like, oh, red car, red car, red. And you see them everywhere. Well, that was a really simple command to myself, watch for red cars. And that's a really easy one. All you have to do is tell yourself, hey, I'm looking for this, or hey, I really recognize I need to do this. In fact, a lot of people have taken, I love the work Joe Vitale did, where he talked about this idea that you could just speak things into reality. And we've seen that through so many different books where people are talking about, if you want to manifest something, you have to think about it at a conscious level, tell yourself you want it, you write it down, you start saying it over and over. And sometimes you'll even say it like, I've already accomplished the thing or done the thing. And so if you just start telling yourself that, or telling other people that, they call it manifesting. And oftentimes things start aligning to help you manifest and get there. So that's one, but then there's all of these other tools like we talked about, EFT. You can tap your way, especially if you have instruction sets that collide with each other. Like I had that instruction set I talked about earlier, where I know I need money and my body's saying you can't take money. And so they're just colliding like this. And it took a while of me trying different tools before all of a sudden it melded and I was brought back into alignment.
When the mind and body are in opposition, as you were saying, and we're talking about tapping, and another thing that people do is like somatic therapy and things like that to kind of release some of that stored energy and tension. Is that clashing of the mind and body what causes perhaps that stored energy or tension? Why do we feel the need to go tap to release stored energy?
Why do we feel the need? You know, I would say sometimes, for me anyways, I didn't know that I needed to tap until someone said, here's an option. And then once I was presented with it and I experienced it for the first time, I thought it was a bunch of hocus pocus. And he said, let me just walk you through a temporary, and literally by the end of the session, I went from being kind of uptight to I felt like I was relaxing on a beach, and the wind's just gently blowing and the waves rolling in. And so I was able to recognize the benefit. And as soon as I recognized the benefit, then I'm like, oh, that is a tool that definitely works. Now I keep it in my tool belt. So that was the moment for me where I recognized, oh, there is this ability where this actually works. And so now it's a tool that I utilize. But before that, I hadn't really discovered that tapping would have any real effect. Although what I have noticed is a lot of people will do tapping without recognizing it, but it's not really tapping. They'll say, and they come in and they make physical contact with the part of their body that's in shock. Or, oh, I saw someone on Saturday that was working on this event, and they literally had their hands on the side of their head pressing, trying to relieve themselves. So I think, you know what, now that I say all of that, you're right. There is this natural tapping that does happen. We just don't even realize we're doing it. So thanks for giving me a new insight.